Do the Knicks have a real chance of winning their series with the Boston Celtics after their game one upset? Will Karl-Anthony Towns turn things around in game two and beyond? And does OG Anunoby have a chance to be a top four player in this very talent stack series? We'll talk about it right now on a little buy and sell on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. I'm Alex Wolf. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at strick.land. And he's Gavin Shaw, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster and the Saturday co-host of the Locked On NBA podcast. And on today's show, we're going to be playing a little buy or sell, one of our favorite things that we've done recently, getting into some hypotheticals for the rest of this series. Now that the Knicks have taken game one and kind of turned this thing on its head. I don't think either of us were expecting, or many people were realistically expecting, the Knicks to come out and snatch game one of this series. So we're going to talk through some scenarios and whether we're buying or selling certain trends that could happen over the rest of this series. But first, I want to thank you all for making Locked On Knicks first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out on your favorite podcast platform or taking in the sights and sounds on YouTube. We appreciate you making us part of your daily routine. Make sure you hit the auto download function on your favorite podcast app or the notification bell on YouTube so you never miss an episode. But without further ado, Gavin, I'm ready to start buying and or selling. I have I don't know. I'm just trying to think of something that could work for this. I have my eBay profile open. I'm ready to either buy things or sell things. I don't know, something like that. Whatever. What's their first scenario here?
I wonder what percentage of our audience knows what eBay is. I'm sure most of them know it exists, but what percentage has ever used eBay in their life? If you're Gen Z and you've used eBay, please comment.
Well, let me tell you, man. If you're in the sneaker game,
yeah,
it's a better place to go than like a StockX. I'll tell you that much. So, those of you that like sneakers, stop shopping on StockX all the time. Go on eBay. You can find much better deals. Anyway.
This episode is not sponsored by eBay. They used to be a sponsor. Shout out to eBay. Anyways, the Knicks have a real chance to win this series. We define that as 35% or more, kind of arbitrarily. I am going to be the downer. I'm going to count on you to be the upper here. I'm going to say no. I think coming in, I would have put it at about somewhere between 5 and maybe 8%. And now I'm closer to 15 to you could talk me into 25. I think I'm somewhere like 20% right now that the Knicks pull out the series, which is coming off the regular season. I think the Knicks had any chance in the world. And now I would call that a puncher's chance more than a real chance. I still think a lot needs to go their way. I think the Celtics, poor injury luck needs to continue. I think you need to benefit from shooting variance. But I look back to that 2023 series the Celtics had against the Miami Heat team that had really no business beating them, player for player. And Caleb Martin just shot out of his mind for 2 weeks, and Boston was out in 7 games when it was all said and done. So we've seen it happen before. We saw the Knicks, I think, in terms of their wings, defend at a level we have not seen all year from them against a team like Boston, maybe with the exception of that first Oklahoma City game. And that was sort of proof of concept to me of, I think, the theory the Knicks had when they got Mikal Bridges, we will have enough defensively to insulate Jalen Brunson, as it turns out, Karl-Anthony Towns. If that continues, and they get to a number of close games in this series, you get the feeling, even if Brunson in a vacuum is not better than Jason Tatum, he could be the better player in the final 4 minutes of any game. And that might be enough for the Knicks to win, as long as they can keep these games close.
Yeah, I'll screw it. I'll be the homer in this scenario. I'll put it at 40%. Sure, why not? I mean, I was right with you. I was probably about 5% going into the first game, mostly because this team hadn't shown us anything like this against good competition. We were still hanging our hats on one good half against Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
And it's that's just not enough. It's you need to see them actually get over the hump. And that's the difference between this team versus say last year's team. It was much easier to have kind of delusions of grandeur last year, because without the injury misfortune that the Knicks had last year, they were whooping really good teams in the regular season, especially after the OG trade. I mean, they just went absolutely bonkers for the month of January last year. everything was going for them. And, you were really able to like squint and be like, I see a potential title team here. Like this looks really good. And this year it was like you could sort of have those feelings if you really squinted, but there was no way around it. Like as much as we kept trying to dance around it and kept looking on the horizon, being like, well, there's 4 games left against the Celtics and the Cavs. Like maybe they can win like one of those and just prove that they're actually capable of beating these guys. It's all just seeing is believing, right? It's like the scientific method. It's like I'm not going to believe that the Knicks can beat the Celtics until I see them beat the Celtics, realistically. And especially when it wasn't particularly close in like any of those games dating back to the season opener. So, I think just seeing a proof of concept, seeing them make adjustments, seeing them like play a style where they clearly made a concerted effort of like, we're going to wall off the paint. We're going to force these guys to try to beat us from 3, but we're also going to they had a better strategy, I think, with the more switch heavy scheme to combat guys getting open on the perimeter, which is what absolutely destroyed them, just getting mauled from, 3 in the corners in the first few games that they played against the Celtics. So yeah, I'm willing to put it at like 40-60 at this point. I still think look, the defending champs are defending champs for a reason. Like they were historically great last year. They're still really, really good this year. And they sort of acknowledged a little bit that like they sort of were not necessarily coasting through the regular season, but doing just what they had to in this regular season to try to stay ready for the postseason. Yeah, so I mean they're still facing a juggernaut here, but you take game 1, like especially on the road, the Knicks have home court advantage now. If literally all they do the rest of the series is win their games at Madison Square Garden, they win the series. So that's something to hang your hat on, and that gives me some hope because they do. I guess last series be damned. They do tend to feed off that Garden crowd and really play better in their home arena for the most part. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt a little bit.
Yeah, I hear you, and I appreciate the optimism. All right, our next buy or sell. OG Anunoby will be a buy or sell, I should say. OG Anunoby will be a top 4 player in this series. I wrote this one, so I had it at 3 initially, and I pushed it down to 4. So maybe that's a little like stirring the pot for myself here, but I buy 4 is the number for me. I don't know if we're going to see the best version of Jaylen Brown. I heard Bill Simmons, a noted Celtics fan, talking about this in his pod today, saying Jaylen Brown dealing with that knee injury is just not the same guy he was on their finals run to last year. He actually looked like decently explosive and was like pretty good in isolation yesterday. Did just shoot 1 for 10 from 3. Obviously, you expect it to get better. I'm sure he'll have some hot shooting games. And by contrast, like you're betting on a lot to say that OG is going to be anything close to offensively what he was in game 1. He obviously shot very poorly in the first round on the season against the Celtics. He was abysmal. I mentioned it last night, but something like 36% from the field, 22% from 3, 9 points per game. So it's a big jump to go from that to 29. I think my case is, Alex, like he doesn't have to put up 30 a game to be a top 4 player in this series. I think the version of OG that scores 18 on something like 46, 38, like 84 splits with the level of defense he's playing. And I do think I'll put Drew Holiday right there, but I think those two are pretty clearly the 2 most impactful defensive players in this series in my mind. I think there's a pretty good argument for it. And the final part of that argument for me is that I just think the Knicks are going to be more reliant on him than almost anyone the Celtics are reliant on outside of Jason Tatum, because they have so much more depth, because they have so much more optionality. So even if Boston wins this series, like it'll probably be outside of Tatum, like a different guy on each night, versus like the Knicks like need OG to be special defensively. And I have a feeling he, at least on that end of the floor, he's going to continue to be great. The flip side of this, which we'll maybe get into our next question, is like clearly when I'm doing that, I'm putting him over Karl-Anthony Towns because I don't expect the Knicks to have 3 of the top 4 guys in this series. But after game 1, like I'm pretty comfortable doing that, especially with the way the Celtics guard Towns. But what do you think about that one?
I think there's a decent chance. So I want to hedge, honestly, because the wording is will be, not can be a top 4 player in the series. Like, can he be? Absolutely buying that. Will he be? I sit on the fence a little bit, but you know what? I'll lean by because I kind of think based off what we saw in game 1, I think that the Knicks have a much easier path in front of them to get him massively involved on offense than potentially Cat, who I think the Celtics had a really good plan for. They were throwing really aggressive doubles at him. Like, it's going to be on Cat to sort of not change who he is as a player, but like play the absolute best version of his offense to really make an impact in this series. Whereas, I noted it in our game one recap, but I think the biggest thing with OG is that this first game was called very differently and it allowed him to play more the way that he wants to play. I think that not getting just mauled all the time on offense, as he's trying to get to the hoop is going to benefit him a lot. And we saw a lot of strong finishes out of him in the first game, a lot of his, signature, like off 2 feet, two-handed dunks. Like, I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more of him being able to muscle guys out of the way. And just in general, like I'll say, I think that the Celtics have very talented defenders, obviously, but I don't know that they have anyone, maybe Tatum, that is quite physically equipped to deal with OG. And I think that he'll get to do his own little like baby Shaq type thing where he gets inside and starts just kind of bullying these guys.
To your point, they brought a double when he posted up Tatum, which I don't know. Maybe Joe Mazzulla and Gabe too says, "Hey, leave that alone. Tatum can take him." But it is interesting that Boston felt threatened by that, and that created the Bridges corner banked in three, like late in the fourth.
Yeah. So I mean, it's something that I think is worth watching. I think that, and look, the thing is if Boston starts overloading on him, then that's Cat's opportunity to get better in this series and to find better opportunities, because you can't overload on two guys on a single possession. Like, it's just, or you could try, but you're probably going to get a three hit in your face if that's the case. So we'll see, but I think there's a real chance for it. I think that the matchup is more exploitable because I think a lot of the Celtics' strength is that they have three centers, ideally, that can all kind of give Cat hell, which is Porzingis, Cornette, and Horford, who all kind of in their own ways have ways of just really making life difficult for Cat. And there's multiple different ways that they can make his life miserable. Like, and I think it's going to be tough sledding for Cat, which means there's an opening for OG to potentially step in and be the Knicks' second best player in this series, which I think would squarely put him in the top four, because like you said, Jaylen Brown, maybe a little bit of a question mark. We'll see how he holds up throughout the series. Maybe Derek White goes bonkers in a game or something that, changes things from the Celtics point of view or whatever. But yeah, we'll see. I think there's a very real chance of it. But speaking of Karl-Anthony Towns, we're going to talk about him a little more, get a little more in depth, talk about if he could turn around in game 2 and beyond. We're going to talk about the switching scheme and if we really believe in that for the rest of this series. We'll talk about the Celtics shooting and if they'll keep shooting this poorly, or if we can expect them to shoot as poorly as they did in the first game in any other game this series. So we're going to talk about that and a bunch more when we get back in to Locked On Knicks.
But first, we want to tell you about our good friends over at OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe for a plumber or a service provider. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or computer. OpenPhone lets me manage business calls and texts from a single app. The shared inbox feature is a game changer. Your team can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat, and their AI agent handles after-hour calls, answers common questions, and captures leads so you never miss a customer. OpenPhone is offering my listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have existing numbers with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers. All right, what's up, guys? We're back here on Locked On Knicks. One final OG Anunoby number before we move on to Cat. I wanted to sneak in there. This is from the NBA's tracking data, which is notoriously imperfect, though according to Steve Popper, this was internal data, so maybe it's a little sharper. OG Anunoby, Alex, opponents took 17 shots against him yesterday in situations where he was the primary defender. What would you guess they shot on those 17?
I actually know the answer already
Yeah.
because I
All right.
saw it already. So
Okay. Well,
I'll
why don't you make me feel better and say like a fake number that's too high so I could be like wrong?
seven of 18 with
No,
them.
you fool. You have never watched the Knicks before. They were 2 for 17 against
I
him.
think I saw
You
two
gotta
for 18 somewhere too. So
2 for
no
18.
less.
Wow.
Like,
Okay. All right. So maybe
yeah.
I'm wrong. All right. Now I feel stupid. Anyways, the point is he was really good. He was really good defensively. All right. Buy or sell Karl-Anthony Towns. We'll turn it around in game 2. Alex, do you buy or sell that?
I'm gonna buy it if this is a relative turnaround.
Mm,
I think that the thing that will be turned around is that he will hopefully not be in foul trouble. I think that
mhm.
life is still gonna I alluded to it in the last segment, but I think based off the guys that the Celtics can throw at him, his life is never going to be easy in this series. Whether he wants to try to score on the inside, whether he wants to try to shoot threes, like they have defenders. I mean, Cornette maybe like can't quite hang with him on the perimeter, but like Porzingis certainly can. I think that as long as he's healthy, obviously Horford, that ageless sob, definitely can. I don't understand how that guy moves so well at like 40 years old, but here we are. We could all hope to move that good at 40 years old, but
Look, he's on whatever LeBron's on and Steph for that matter. So
as far as we know,
yeah.
whatever, I don't know,
Which
but
is conditioning. Which is conditioning.
it's just conditioning. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I think offensively this is going to be a slog for Cap, but I think the main thing is that he'll be able to stay on the floor more and thus eliminate certain things for the Celtics, such as the hack-a-Mitch protocol. I don't think they'll be able to lean on that quite as much. Hopefully, if Cat is able to keep his fouls in check, I think we saw him. This is all kind of, I don't know. I might just be being hopeful, but like obviously, like we saw him kind of lose his temper, I think, a bit in game one, and especially in like the third quarter, saw Cat like make some really stupid fouls as he was like trying to get himself going on offense. He had that really stupid offensive foul he committed when he was already in foul trouble. Like, it was up to that point, you were just like, dude, like stop fouling people. And it was in large part thanks to the Celtics like hunting the Tatum and Towns matchup and then exploiting that and Towns just not being able to not use his hands or not being able to just keep Tatum in front of him. Tatum was kind of cooking him in the first half, but he really figured things out in the second half. And I think was able to read Tatum a little better, keep him in front of him, and at least like stymie him enough that help could come down under the rim. I think as long as Cat is able to keep that going and kind of like take the notes that he learned from game one and transfer them to game two and beyond, he should hopefully be able to stay on the floor more, which then obviously opens up the opportunity for him to make more of an impact. I will say, like, we maybe underrated this a little bit, but like in just over 30 minutes in the last game, which is, fairly low for a Knicks starter at this point in the season, had like 13 boards, I think was his final number in game one. So the rebounding was really effective. I think that he's maybe the best defensive rebounding presence that the Knicks have. All apologies to Mitchell Robinson. Although Mitch is obviously a maestro with the offensive boards, but I think having Cat on the floor more obviously is a good thing. And hopefully he can figure it out on offense, but if nothing else, just being on the floor, being able to provide the other things that he provides, which also includes some pretty solid one-on-one defense sometimes. I think that's all for the better if he can do that.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell this one. And to your point, it is a matter of nuance. I think he'll be better than he was in game one, but I and again, all subjective. My definition of turning around was like he's Karl-Anthony Towns in this game, and I don't think offensively there's been what 2 games, 3 games where he's played to like the level you expect a guy who's making his salary, who's a former number one pick, who is like again like a top, I don't know, 10 most talented big we've ever seen in the NBA offensively, purely on the offensive side of the ball. I just don't think this is going to be a good series for him, and I think like Tom Thibodeau coached a great game yesterday, and like it's something because we're kind of limited for time on our pods. We didn't fully get to dive into, but I don't. We definitely didn't give him enough credit. Like I thought the adjustments he made were great. He was willing to counter in game and like shift stuff around. Like I thought it was like a lot of the stuff I've asked for, I got, and it was good results. So I can't complain. Given that caveat, I will say I don't think he is the right coach. I don't think this is the right coaching staff. to figure out how to get Towns to go against this team. We know exactly what Boston is going to do against them, and we'll talk about it a little bit more later. But like I like, again, as long as Josh Hart is on the floor, and when Josh Hart is playing as well as he did yesterday, even with the non-shooting, he has to be on the floor. Like Cat is going to be going against 2 defenders every time. Early in the game, like I pointed out a couple examples of this. Like I thought he was patient. He had the one where he like threw like the great ball fake off an OG cut to get rid of the double team, then flipped it in. Another one where it was Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, and he was able to score over the double. But unless Mitch is on the floor, like actively pulling the center away from him, like if the double involves 2 bigs, Cat just does not know how to handle that. He's like proven time and time again now he's not a good enough passer. Like even when guys get wide open on that, even when Hart's like clearly wide open off that, to make that kick out, and he forces the issue. And like last night he made some shots out of it. And then in the third quarter, that was like an all-time like Cat just mental meltdown quarter. And I'm hoping we don't get more of that. But to your point, I think the Celtics team is sort of uniquely designed to get in his head and cause some of those mistakes because they're very fast, very aggressive, like make very smart stunts defensively. And I think that's gonna screw with him a little bit, and he's gonna have some dumb turnovers. Defensively, I think is an area like he can continue to hold up. Those same tracking stats had Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum shooting just 1 for 8 against him. So obviously if he continues that and Brunson holds up the way he holds up on Tatum, that'll look really good. I do think Joe Mazzulla is going to put a big emphasis on those guys like putting their head downhill and getting all the way to the rim, because I thought a big part of the Celtics' poor shooting is that they just settled in a lot of those one-on-ones. Like Tatum was only taking pull-ups over Brunson and only taking pull-ups over Cat and Mitch. Like if those guys make more of an effort to get to the rim, it could result in layups. It could result in kickouts for threes. So I do think that will be very telling for Cat. As far as the rebounding, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I thought the number was inflated by the fact that Boston literally missed the most threes ever in a playoff game. And I got a good Mitchell Robinson number for you in that counter from our buddy DJ Zullo. The Knicks defensive rebounding rate, 76% with Mitchell Robinson on the floor, 58% with Mitchell Robinson off the floor. So on a night, I really ripped Mitch. Like that was an area I thought he made a big difference. I think Cat has kind of been a little disappointing from a rebounding perspective in these playoffs. He was good at times against Detroit. And I'm hoping he actually picks it up a little bit, but we will see. That is buy or sell on Karl-Anthony Towns. But Alex, we still have a whole lot more to get to. We're going to go rapid fire to finish this one up. That'll be in just a sec here on Locked On Knicks. All right, guys, it is that time. Buy or sell lightning round. Alex, the switching is working and the Knicks should stick with it. Buy or sell?
Hot take. I'm going to sell just in the sense of the Knicks should be open to doing more things if the switching stops working. I think that's my main ask here. And, I'm not going to go so far as say they should do something crazy, like do a zone or something. But I think, if the situation calls for it and for whatever reason they think it would be advantageous, go to drop. I think it's more than likely that switching is the most effective means of winning this series. But this is just my plea to Tom Thibodeau. Stay open-minded is my main thing. So if the switching is getting abused at any point, if they're hunting that like matchups with Cat, or if they're hunting whatever matchups with Brunson and it's like really killing them, then switch up and don't be afraid to try something different just because you came into the game wanting to switch everything and it didn't work out or whatever. So I will say I think it's more than likely that switching is going to be the most effective defense in this series, but I do think that at some point or another the Knicks will have to change things a little bit, and Tibbs should just be ready to do that whenever that time comes.
Yeah, you make a great point, and I agree with everything you said. I'm going to buy it because I really I don't know if I think you could incorporate some blitzing, and I think that'd be helpful. There are like degrees to which you can switch. You could switch in like certain matchups, like say with Brunson and Cat, you could say, are you going to battle through the screen? Or you could say if OG Anunoby's involved, like the one guy in the Knicks, maybe along with Josh Hart, that can like consistently get through screens, then you don't switch in those situations. So I'm with you on scalability. I'm with you on being willing to pivot off it if it's not working. I think switching needs to be the primary defense for the Knicks to function. And to that point, the Knicks tried some hedge and recover with Brunson. And outside of like offensive rebounding, where the Celtics got a decent chunk of their best looks from three, the hedge and recover like burned the Knicks over and over again. And it's burned them all playoffs where Brunson, and honestly burned them at the end of the regular season, like the end of that Cavs game where they tried to do it with the Garland Struce pick and pops because Brunson just like, he always seems to bail too early. Because if not, he doesn't. It's not even that he doesn't trust that he can get back to the shooter in time. He knows he can't get back to the shooter in time. And we talked about it last night, but we saw Boston set that up. And like he tried to do it so urgently late in the fourth quarter, they just ran a roll instead of a pop. And you saw, was it Drew Holiday? I can't remember, but I think it was Drew Holiday getting a wide open layup at the end of that game. So I would ditch that. I would go to even more switching, again, depending on the context. All right, buy or sell. Josh Hart still needs to shoot open threes for the Knicks to win this series. Alex, I look back on that first quarter and I thought his lack of willingness to take where Boston just like dared him, like put his manhood on the table to shoot the ball. And instead he's like trying to loft it over the top to Cat, and Cat is fairly not paying attention to it. And Tibbs is pulling him after that. I still think there have been some disastrous sequences with Hart not shooting, even though on the whole, like he played a really good game yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. To say that they can't win the series, or he needs to shoot the open threes for them to win the series, I will sell that. I think that the Knicks have, especially like in that Detroit series, I think we saw like Hart doesn't need to go as bonkers from three as he did last postseason for the Knicks to be effective necessarily. I don't think that he was he was a little unwilling, but like he took 5 threes in the first game. Like, I don't think I want him taking more than that, certainly. So, I mean, if that wasn't like enough threes for him to take, if he's not in a rhythm, I don't want him taking that many. And it's pretty abundantly clear to me, at least, like he seems to know when he's got it or when he doesn't. And when he doesn't, he just does not want to shoot those things. We also saw obviously whatever happened to his hand while he was getting the strip off of Pritchard last game. Like, I don't know if he jammed a finger or like whatever, but he was kind of fiddling with his hand a little bit. That seemed to even affect his free throws a little bit. At this point, I'm like, it doesn't seem to be as huge of an issue because if the Knicks can move the ball like they did in the last game, if they can like utilize screens a little better like they have been, like they were running so many guys over to set screens for Brunson and get things rolling, like that allows Hart to potentially cut to the basket, which, you know, he's good at cutting back door. He's great finishing around the rim, obviously, as he has been all year. I don't think that he needs to take any more threes than he did in the first game for the Knicks to still be successful. But I will say, if this question were phrased like Josh Hart needs to make 3 threes in one of these games for the Knicks to win this series or something, I will say I think that will be the case at some point. I think that one of these games, like I don't know what game it is, but one of these games he will have to punish it being left open all these times. And I hope in that game he shoots like 4 for 7 or something from 3 and like takes a bunch of them when he feels like he's feeling it, because that is one of the greatest like things that the Knicks can pull out of their sleeves any given night, is be like, aha, you think Josh Hart isn't a shooter? Well, guess what, buddy? This guy's shooting and making threes tonight, and he's going to punish you all day. And that's, I mean, we've seen that literally win the Knicks series before, such as last year against the Sixers, for example, where Josh Hart just went nuts from 3. So I'd like him to keep trying, but I don't want him to overdo it. I guess is my answer here, which is why I'm ultimately selling it.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it. He's literally just came off a series again on very limited attempts, but he shot 50% from 3. Like he shot very well for the most part from 3 in the playoffs last year. Like it's such a catch-22 because, like, to your point, like if he's so far in his own head, like maybe he won't be able to shoot them. But like we know he can shoot because like at the end of shot clocks, like through like 2/3 of the season, he was literally like the most efficient player in the NBA. And you see it constantly where he's making like tough Kobe fadeaways at the end of shot clocks. I'm like, dude, you can make an open 3. Like we know it's in there. And the thing is, like, I think it's essential. And I think the reason it wasn't essential last night was because Boston could not go double big after KP went out and Luke Cornett was in pretty serious foul trouble from that hack a Mitch in the first half. I think if KP is healthy, which we should clarify, he's probable to play in game 2. I think it's still a question mark. Like what, because I thought that was, it was somewhat the Knicks playing great defense on him, somewhat just a very weird lethargic performance from him. Like we'll see what he actually looks like. But if they get like an 80% Kristaps Porzingis, like I just think like the paint, the rim is going to be sealed off for the Knicks unless Josh Hart can like take and make like a number of threes. And you say like they need one game like that from him. I think they need 2 or 3 games like that from him to win this series. Maybe that's ultimately proven wrong. And I think it reflects the fact that like I might think there's still a bigger gap there between these two teams too than you do after game 1. And we'll see if that gets proven out. All right, second to last one. This is one I suggested last night. So maybe that's spoiling my answer. But buy or sell, the Knicks should try DeLon Wright over campaign specifically for this series.
I'm selling it. I still believe in campaign. I think there's just a greater chance that whatever campaign can potentially give you on offense is worth more to you than what DeLon Wright could potentially give you on defense, I guess. And you know, both guys are a wild card. I know DeLon Wright, like I don't want to discredit what he did when the Knicks were at their lowest point this year in terms of injuries, and he had to start because like Payne and Brunson were both out, and Deuce McBride was out for some of those games. Like he stepped in, he did great. He shot pretty well from 3. He might be able to replicate that, but I mean, we've quite literally seen campaign win the Knicks a game in this playoffs already. So I'm more willing to like kind of, I don't know, if DeLon Wright is like a nice steady like IRA or whatever, like then campaign is like a lottery ticket. You know, it's like, but in this case, I feel like the lottery ticket is a little more beneficial, like because both guys, how much are they going to play? 5 minutes? Like, is campaign going to like crap the bed that hard on defense that he's going to like lose you those 5 minutes that badly? Like, I don't know, maybe, but I think that he has his moments on defense too. And like, you're kind of just rolling the dice on like, hey, we're going to play this guy for 5 minutes, but if he's cooking, we'll maybe give him a chance to play 15 minutes because when he's making shots and creating threes and shooting as well as he possibly can, like he's probably the best bench scorer that the Knicks have. All apologies to Deuce McBride when he is on. And that's a big when because it seems to really come in fits and spurts. He makes J.R. Smith look like an ultra consistent guy off the bench. But yeah, I'm still leaning towards I'd rather play campaign. I'd rather get that lottery ticket and see what he can do rather than take the more safe. Like I do agree. I think DeLon Wright would be a safe option. I think that he would give you some solid defense and whatever. Maybe you want to get him a couple minutes in some game just to make sure that he's like up to speed, just in case you need him for a defensive possession late. Like I think that's a really viable time to potentially throw him out there. If you just need sort of like last night, like if you feel confident, you just need a stop to end the game, like with 3 seconds left, like maybe throw DeLon Wright out there and feel okay with it. So like you need to see him in a little game action first to make sure you feel comfortable with that. But that's about the extent of it for me.
Yeah, I'm going to buy it because Tom Thibodeau, to your point, is playing these guys 5 minutes. I don't think he's giving campaign like a fair chance to come out and get hot. And like if you are a spark plug bench scorer and you know you're gonna have 1 4-minute stretch every game, like I just think that is especially against the guard defenders that the Celtics have. Like that is just an impossible task to come out there and be like, all right, he's going to hit 2 floaters and a 3 in those 5 minutes. And maybe there's a game that he does. And to your point, like if I'm going to believe my own argument that the Celtics are substantially better than the Knicks, I should be arguing for more variance. But I just don't think he's being given a fair chance to have that variance. And I got a little spooked watching Drew Holiday literally like go through him like punching through paper mache yesterday. Like that is not a good matchup. Pritchard's not a good matchup. White's not a good matchup for him. So I got a little spooked. I hear you. He's been the better, more impactful player this season. I like the idea that Wright can hold up defensively, can still like possibly hit a spot of 3 or get like a pump and go blow by for like an assist or a layup or something. I don't know why. I think Wright, I kind of value the solidity that Wright brings. And honestly, I think it'd be cool if you gave him some minutes with McHale, with OG, and you just had sort of a lockdown unit out there, even next to Brunson, which we haven't gotten to see all year. All right, Alex, we can go real quick. Last one. The Celtics will have another game shooting under 30% from 3 in this series by yourself.
I'm going to just be a homer and just buy it. Screw it. Yeah. I put this one in there. This was one of my contributions. So like, yeah, you know what? I think the Knicks can do it. I think they made them uncomfortable. I think that the main thing is that, like, despite the fact that, you know, I think I've seen a lot of takes today being like, yeah, well, you can't expect the Celtics to shoot that bad from 3 again because, like, they took so many. They normally make so many more of those, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, but yeah, okay, they missed the most threes in history in an NBA playoff game. I think they took close to the most, if not the most threes in a single playoff game. Like in that game, like, but it was what the Knicks ultimately wanted them to do, it seemed like. And they contested those threes better than they did at any point during the regular season, especially during that huge run from the third into the fourth quarter. So I think they can do it again. I think they can make the Celtics shoot under 30% for a whole game again, because the Celtics just their whole identity is jacking up tons of threes, and the Knicks sort of identified that and said, we don't think they can hang with us on the inside, so we're gonna like just force the ball back outside, and then we're gonna just contest them with our wings as best as we can, and hope that it makes them just uncomfortable enough that they start missing. And that's exactly what happened. So maybe lightning doesn't strike twice, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna buy it. I think they can do it.
I appreciate the optimism. I'm going to sell this one, though I will note in favor of your argument to the idea that like Boston just did not have a randomly poor shooting game. This is an incredible stat from D. Lee for three, who covers the Atlanta Hawks. Boston shot the most pull-up / movement threes they have all season with 33, and they made just 7 of them, so shooting 21% of those shots. So the Knicks basically forced Boston like into, and some of it was volume, but let's just call it one of like the tougher shot, or one of the worst shot quality games they had all year in that sense. And I saw the NBA tracking data. I think most people who watch the game think that's off. That like indicated the Celtics had a bunch of open threes and missed a bunch of open threes, but we all watched the game. Like I did not really see that relative to the proportion of total shots they were taking. So I think the Knicks will continue to play good defense, but I think that good defense will result in maybe 1 or 2 more games in this series where they shoot 34% from 3. I just think Boston has too many guys that are great shooters. But let us know if you agree with the comments. Alex has been a little bit more optimistic than me, but I'm curious what you all think. Until next time, which will be after game 3, he's Alex. I'm Gavin. We'll talk to you very, very soon on Locked On Knicks.